Yeah, you guys didn't know the menu? Pizza and donuts, bros. It's calorie night. Woo! I'll leave you to figure that one out.
Donuts. Yeah, it's dough with chocolate.
All right, guys, quiet down. Shh. It is time to talk about dating and marriage. Oh, don't do that, you silly light bulbs. Ah. Shh. I need the voices to be lowered. Lowered, please.
Yeah, it's
Less voices. All right. Thank you. So, Kira, that means stop it. Also, stop it. So, I have a quick little conversation starter. It's just a little 60-second video you might find on some of those streaming platforms, TikTok-y, YouTube-y, not Twitch, Instagram, whatever you got, whatever you don't got. You're going to find this on there, but this is actually some solid truth as opposed to what you usually find on there. All right, here we go.
So it's not really age as much as it's stage, and there's socio-cultural realities there as well. And stage would be, we go to the Bible, and I tell my kids, I say, well, what stage are you at as a woman? Are you ready to manage a home? Are you ready to care for your husband? I tell my son, I say, are you ready to protect and to provide for a young woman? Are you ready to pay the bills? Are you ready to make sure that your entire family has a vision set for them and knows how to execute on that vision? And the reality is you can have a 30-year-old guy, it's really not age, a 30-year-old guy who's a total goofball show up, and his age makes him look good, but he has absolutely nothing in order and doesn't know the Word of God. And then you could have a 17-year-old who's been properly trained, he's got his life together, he's ready to give me my dowry and take my daughter away and treat her right. And I'm like, she's yours. So to me, I wouldn't put age on it. I would look at the character of the heart, and then I would know that that's the right man for my daughter or my woman for my son.
All right, so question we often ask each other, we talk about, we think about in the privacy of our own mind is, what age should people start dating? And so I was interested to see what you guys put, and I didn't put too many restraints on those answers. You guys picked a pretty narrow selection of answers, but you notice I didn't give you multiple choice. I said type in a number. Type in a number, and we didn't have like more than 6 answers, right? You guys picked the same few answers, and most you landed on predominantly 16 or 18. Just by yourselves. I didn't give you multiple choice. You just picked 16 and 18.
I did 16.
The question's meant to be sort of a trick question. I don't think there's a right answer. Like he said, you could be 30 and still not be ready to be married. That'd be terrible. I would hate that for you if that was the case, but it's possible. Likewise, you could be ready at 16. I'm not going to rule it out, but I will say this. Most of the 16-year-olds I've met weren't ready. If you were ready for marriage at 16, oh my gosh, yeah, that'd be amazing. You'd be an amazing person. That would be awesome. But that would be rare. That would be rare. That is not the norm for 16-year-olds. Most 16-year-olds aren't even close. So here's a different question he didn't ask. How many 16-year-olds do you know that are ready to raise children? Count them off for me. How many? 2? You've met 2? How many 16-year-olds have you met in your entire life? Could you even count? You've met 2 16-year-olds in your entire life? That's actually kind of weird. Did they just let you out of a cave today? What happened? Most of us have met more than that. So no, it really is about what stage you're in, and you can progress faster than other people, but this is critical. You guys got to hear this. The ability to tell what stage you're in is something that comes in the latter stages of development, the later stages of development. The ability to tell what stage you are in is not an ability you have when you're in the first stages. I'll give you an example. If you show a 5-year-old people jumping off a bridge and you show them doing it safely, the 5-year-old will probably just go for it, especially if it's a 5-year-old boy.
Oh, yeah.
But if you ask him, what does it take to do this
3.
and not die?
Obviously.
He has no clue.
Land on your face.
He doesn't know. He doesn't know what it takes. Likewise, if you ask people who've watched how to do something, if they can do it, and they say yes,
So YouTube's
they probably are too young to do it.
Yeah. Not Logan.
Does that make sense? You don't just learn by watching. You don't. You actually have to make some attempts. You need to have someone sort of hold your hand, walk with you as you fail, help you when you mess it up, tell you when to stop because you're about to just blow the whole thing up and wreck yourself.
Never fail. Sure.
You need someone who's more experienced to guide you through that. So part of the when should you start dating has to be asking someone who knows you and asking someone who already has gone through the whole process. They're already at that point where they're in a healthy marriage. Ask them, someone who knows you and they're in a healthy marriage. That's the person who would best be able to tell you if you're at the stage to get married. Now, I would make the assertion, you should not date until you're at the stage where you're ready to get married. That's what I would tell you. You should not date until you're at the stage where you're ready to get married. Now, does anyone have any answers for that? Like, why? Why should you wait until you're ready to get married before you date?
That's a question.
So I started with the statement, now I'm asking the question.
You said, does anyone have any answers for that?
I think he's sick.
Got him.
What?
You said, does anyone have any answers for that?
For the question.
For the statement.
Well, that's why I rephrased it as a question. I know I messed up. That's why I fixed it. Were you listening when I fixed it?
No.
Oh.
He was listening at all.
Okay, so why do you think I think that? Or why do you think that might be true? Or why do you think it's not true?
Because Jesus.
What?
I think I just lost brain cells.
No, I lost a long time ago.
All right, well, do you guys disagree or agree? You think you should wait until you're ready to get married before you date?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you know what's interesting? I've been doing this for over 10 years now, and most of my middle schoolers say yes, they agree with me.
Maybe.
But if you go over there to the other room where the high schoolers are and you ask them the same question,
No.
you know most of them don't agree with me anymore. Most of them don't.
That's why I said no.
When I ask this age group, they're like, yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. I won't argue. I don't care that much. It doesn't bother me if it's the truth, because, I mean, I don't even want to date yet, so who cares? Yeah. And then you go ask the high schoolers, and you know the number one reason they disagree? Because they want to date, and they know they're not ready to get married. Yeah. That's it. That's all there is to it. They want to date, but they know they're not ready to get married, so they're like, no, you shouldn't have to wait till you're ready to get married. Abby in the back, what you got?
I still agree with you.
You still agree with me, and you're in high school? Kudos to Abby, yay! All right. Anybody else? Can anyone back this up with reasons? I got reasons, but I'm curious if you guys can think it through. Anyone want to back this up, or anyone want to disagree? And give me the reasons why not.
Bella was raising her hand.
Oh, sorry, Bella.
I was just gonna say, is it because they're irresponsible or like?
Depends on what.
I think it's mostly the one I cited. Maybe there's other ones. Maybe there's other ones.
Say like, is it because they say no because they're irresponsible and they don't want to be responsible?
That wasn't me.
They want it like, already.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, there's a certain definition of dating that's out there, and that definition is a pretty fun-sounding definition. And marriage is not all fun. It's also kind of difficult. And it has this huge payoff. It's life-changing. It's God-honoring. It reshapes the world when you start a family that way. You are literally improving the world for God's glory when you run your marriage and your family the way God shows you to run it. And that's awesome. And dating has really no part in that. But it's fun.
No.
Does that make sense?
No.
So most people, they just want that fun part.
There's where I disagree with you.
Okay, so we can get into that. I'm curious though, real fast. It's not really on the board. We're gonna go do it in a second. But before we get there, I'm curious what you guys would say before I show you the video. What is dating? Like if you were in the dictionary and you turned to the D's, you found the DA, DAT, and you're like, dating, there it is. What is that?
I think it's like something like getting to know your future wife or husband.
Okay, getting to know them.
Making sure they're the right one for you.
Making sure they're the right one for you. Getting to know them, making sure they're the right one for you. Try not to repeat answers. What would you guys add to that? Getting to know them, making sure they're the right one for you. What else? Dating is that a hand?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Like, trying to know them outside their, it's like away from home.
Knowing them away from home. I take your answer on faith, but I would like to know in what way is away from home different or important, or like why do you need to know that versus how they are at home?
Because like you would want to know, because some people like act different, and you would want to know like how they treat their mom if it was like, well,
Wait, wouldn't that be at home?
yeah, well, like you wouldn't, well, not for me. If you would want to know how they would treat like their dad, if I was gonna date a girl,
Okay,
I would want to know how she treats her dad and how she treats her brothers.
so I feel like you said the wrong thing then, because you said you want to know how they are away from home.
That's not what I meant.
Oh, what did you mean?
I want to know them like away from
Where you met them, let's say?
what
Like,
them
you want to get
You wanna know their
information
family.
from them about how they are at home.
She wants to be
like
their
yeah,
house, their
like,
family.
you
So you want to see them around their family?
What's your IP
Yeah.
address?
Okay, because the word you said was away from home, and I think you literally mean in their home, which is like the opposite. So I was confused.
we both mess up.
That's okay. yeah, 1 for 1. Yeah, there you go. It's a tie game. Yes.
Sorry, I have another answer.
Okay.
It's dating is kind of like socializing, which I'm not good at. Yeah, it basically like getting to know the people around you and possibly starting a romantic connection and relationship and
Okay.
making
Connection,
connection. Yeah.
relationship. Those are good words. Very good words. Okay. You want to form that connection. You want to have a relationship. Anybody else? Any other definitions for dating? You know, you guys have missed so far, which is not bad. I'm not saying it's bad at all. It's just interesting to me. You've completely missed how they kiss. Because there's like, I don't know, 9, 10 classic songs about how the kiss tells you everything, and you know everything you need to know when you kiss them. And like, for some reason, we've got all these awesome answers. You guys have given me all these awesome answers about knowing how they treat their family, knowing if they're a good match for you, getting to know them, forming a connection. And like, none of you are giving me any answers about like how cushy their lips feel on your lips or anything like that. You've completely skipped it. And now I'm curious.
Also another
I gotta get an honest answer out of you guys.
Why, Daniel?
This is why, because I need the honest answer. Are you guys not putting that on the list of the definition of dating because A, you think it shouldn't be on the list, or B, you just find that gross for now, and maybe you won't someday, but for now you do, so you don't want it on the list. Like, should it never be there, or is it just you don't want it there? Does that make sense?
I don't.
Morally speaking, should it just never be on that list?
What?
Or do you personally just not want it on the list?
I could because I know how it is.
Let me put it a different way.
Yeah, thank you.
Well,
The fact that you guys left romance off the list, I need to know why. Is it because you think romance shouldn't be on the list? Or do you just not care about romance yet? Like, so if you saw someone else who's 18, 19, 20, 25, I don't care, and they are dating, and romance is on their list, does that bother you that they have romance in their life? Or would it only bother you that if it's your list? Does that make sense if it's in your life? Why is it off the list?
Because we're too young for this.
We're too young. Okay, good. Middle schoolers, too young. That's one opinion. Any other opinions? Should it never be on the list, or is it an age-related thing? You guys are all in middle school.
Never be on the list.
Never be on the list. So here's an interesting question then. Age-related, never on the list. I've got only 2 answers. Any other answers?
I don't know.
America.
Not sure. That's a real answer. That's a real answer. Thank you. That is honesty. Anyone else? Okay. What would it look like if you met someone who was ready to get married?
I don't know that for sure.
I love you.
I don't know.
That's an honest answer too. Anybody else? Could you give me maybe one quality, one attribute? Like you don't commit. You don't have to make the whole list for me. What's one thing you would see in a person who was ready to get married?
Do taxes.
Okay, whoa, I got two at once.
Taxes.
They know how to do taxes.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Okay, and they're brave.
You're ready to
They're brave. Okay, anyone else?
A ring.
They have a ring. I mean, you can get a ring last minute if you had to, but okay, that's fair. Yeah, not ready to walk down the aisle till you got the ring to take with you.
Yep.
Yeah,
They're wise.
they're wise. Okay, interesting. Yes, Amelia.
Maybe if they're caring or they like have, I don't know, siblings that they take care of or.
No, that's really good. Okay, they're caring, and you've actually got a way to tell, right? You've seen them taking care of people. That's really good. Anybody else? What other qualities or attributes?
Job.
They have a job. That is a big deal. That is a big deal. If you've never seen someone work, you've never seen someone work.
Whoa. I feel like
That's
it's aimed
crazy.
towards me.
Prove to me you're not lazy. Prove to me you're not lazy. How do you do it? You work. So if you've never seen someone work, that means you don't know. They might be lazy. You don't know. They can't prove it until you've seen them work. All right, yeah, Grace.
So I'm adding two things on to wise, working, and I forgot the other one.
Okay, let's look into this real quick. I think you guys did really good on some of these questions, but I want you guys to think a little longer on this one. We'll come back to it, okay? Let's see.
13.
And Karen.
What's happening?
I did it wrong.
Monkey.
What are you doing?
Monkey see, monkey do.
Oh yes.
Here's what it looks like. And this is a short list. It's a really short list. You could just keep on going. There is literally a chapter for the girls. There's a bit of a chapter in like 4 different books for the guys. So like you could just keep building this list out. I tried to reduce it. I tried to boil it down to like the basic qualities.
What's the food?
Where's the food?
I mean.
It's right there.
Yeah!
Okay. But also it's right there. It's important, Danny. You could be the world's greatest cook, but if there's no food in the fridge, it's gonna be hard. It's a two-way street there. Yeah.
The third one was
Poor Danny Ramsey.
Christ-centered, actually.
Well, it's already on the list. I put it on there.
I was going to say.
Oh, you were gonna say it. I get it now. Okay, good job. Good job. She knew. She knew. So you can build it out with details. You can just, keep adding the Bible verses on. I got a bunch of them in a list later. But these are the foundational ones. These are signs of maturity. And these are also variable traits. You can be Christ-centered a little. Right? That's a thing. You could be a little Christ-centered. You're growing in it, right? You're getting better at it. You could be leading in small ways. You could be providing here and there. You could be growing sometimes, slowly. So it's not a if this then yes. It's not a yes, 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 yes. It's really a how much. How much? And I think the final questions are really simple, okay? So, because I'm a guy, this is the way my brain starts. I start on the guy's side of the equation. The ladies need to ask this question. Is he Christ-centered enough to raise my kids? Is he Christ-centered enough? Is he a good enough leader to lead me? Is he selflessly providing enough that, we would be okay? We would live. And is he growing spiritually, and this is critical, like I am, and then some? So flip that around for the guys. When you're looking at a girl and you're just concerning yourself, is she the one? Ask yourself, is she Christ-centered enough that I want her to raise my kids? Is she properly submitted enough that when I go to lead, she'll follow? Is she selflessly serving right where she's at right now with all the responsibilities she could possibly take on? Is she serving right now? Do I get to see what it would look like if she was serving in our family?
She makes good tacos.
It's a pretty killer trait, actually. It's hard to come by. Tacos are a tricky thing. If she can keep up with like the taco trucks, then like
Tacos are easy to make.
not well. And is she growing spiritually in the same direction I'm growing spiritually? Are we going to have these fights of the faith down the road? Are we going to have one person growing way more than the other down the road? Is she going to be spiritually minded enough that when I mess up, she calls me on it? And she's willing to correct where I go wrong? And is she spiritually minded enough that she'll be praying for me constantly as I attempt to lead and provide? So these are the questions we're supposed to ask. And you can get into the nitty-gritty, you can get into the details. We're gonna continue to talk about that. So, what do you guys think? What stage are you at? How close are you? How many more milestones do you have to go before you're ready to get married?
20.
50. 100.
What do you know you're not ready for? Like, give me something you know you can't do. Okay, what?
Talking to a boy.
Raising kids and living.
Raising kids and living with someone. Talking to a boy. Okay, we're definitely setting the bar low here. Yeah, Danny.
Provide.
Being able to provide. Very, very important. Yeah.
Also talking to a boy.
Talking to what?
Also talking to a boy.
Also talking to a boy. Judah, you've been doing that the whole dang time. I've been watching you.
He's been talking to me.
Okay. All right. Socializing. All right. Driving. That's actually a little important. A little important. Probably shouldn't get married before you can drive a car. Probably not. Yes.
Providing and dating.
Driving, providing, and dating. And kids. Not ready for all of these. All right, so here's an interesting question. I hope to build you guys up a little. Is there any part of marriage, because you guys have all watched your parents, is there any part of marriage you do think you could do well? Cooking. Good.
Okay.
Good. You know what? If you've got one thing down, one thing under your belt, it means you're moving. You're growing, okay? Anyone else? What's one thing you can do?
Talk.
Talking, but not to a boy.
I can't.
I'm like, I feel like your husband's gonna get the cold shoulder till you have a girl as a child or something. It's just terrible. Okay. Anyone else?
Being humorous.
Being humorous. Okay, now, I don't want to be offensive, but I found this weirdly true. I heard this from a very worldly source, but they were purporting to be an expert on dating, and they said this. In the world of dating, women think it's really important for a man to be funny enough that they can laugh at him and laugh at his jokes and that he makes them laugh. And men think it's really important that a woman have a really good sense of humor, enough so that she laughs at his jokes.
Okay.
What?
My dad's.
It's a little funny. Feels a little true. All right, so sense of humor, awesome. You know what's good about a sense of humor?
You laugh.
Even in the hard moments, you can put a smile back on both your faces. That is actually important in marriage. There are times where if the hard moment just sits as a hard moment, it can get a little depressing. You can start to lose hope. Sometimes lightheartedness actually just gets the smile on your face enough that you remember this is not all that there is. It is not only hard moments. It's a good reminder in those difficult times. It's also really fun in the good times. Having a good sense of humor is great in the good times.
You gotta hold too deep for me.
I'm sorry. Something good to practice. Okay, anyone else? Something you can do. Something you already have down.
Watch.
I was in the river. Yes.
I can play video games really well, and I'm competitive.
For some guys, that is like an actual must
For what?
on the marriage list. Yes, Elliot. Sorry, I didn't see your hand.
Good job.
You've applied for a job before? Yeah. Awesome. That's great. That's very adulty. I like it. She's applied for a job before.
No, you
Good
don't.
for her.
Okay. Anyone else? Any others? No? Yes. One more.
Taking care of toddlers.
taking care of toddlers, very important. Learning to take care of kids is not a once and done skill. It is very true. You actually need to learn how to take care of infants, and that's completely separate from learning how to take care of toddlers, and that's completely separate from learning how to take care of grade schoolers, and that's completely separate from learning how to take care of teenagers. So like, you got one down. That's awesome. Like, but you gotta keep building up that list, because it's all very different. It's all very different. I think my favorite story, I might have told you guys, was when Jane was incredibly young. She was at that age where the baby can't even like roll around yet. Like you set her on her back, she's just gonna stay there. Like you'll find her an hour later in that exact position if you don't do anything. So Emily sets down Jane, and Emily's mom was at the house, and she brings in some laundry from the laundry room and like dumps it. Oh no! Like right on baby Jane, and like doesn't realize it, and didn't even notice. And so then Emily comes back in the room, and she's like, where's Jane? Was it Emma? I thought that was Jane. Oh yeah, duh. They weren't living with us when Jane was born. They were living with us when Emma was born. Okay, well that was baby Emma. My bad. Okay, so yeah, taking care of infants is a whole different deal than toddlers. Infants, it's like you can't forget to feed them, burp them, change them, like get them to fall asleep just over and over and over, giant cycle. Toddlers, you have to make sure they don't run around like
Naked?
destroying themselves, because they just will. They'll just destroy themselves.
And they'll make
Make sure they don't eat crayon.
They'll make people worried. This is true. They're very good at it.
very true.
All right, we're going to move on. All right, does anyone know why we should wait to date until we are ready for marriage?
So you don't
Final answer time.
practice.
Final answer time. Here's why you should wait until you are ready.
So you don't
Whatever, we had a wonderful time. I think that's just basically the idea. But then she pours out her heart in verse 5. Do you see that? She says, I am lovesick. What a great phrase, isn't it?
No.
The maiden described having a feeling that's familiar to many of us who have known the thrill of romantic love. There's something about that, isn't it? She felt physically weak and perhaps even a little bit disoriented because of the strength of attraction and infatuation that she felt towards her beloved. Well, I don't know. I don't want to get too personal right here for you. I'm not going to ask for any testimonies. But have you felt that? No. Have you felt what that's like?
America.
You get a little goofy in the head, a little weak in the knees. It's like, wow, I'm so struck by this person, and I'm so in love. I feel this flood of affection and infatuation. I'm lovesick. We've heard this falling in love, falling head over heels, but there's something to it. You can't get that person out of your mind. You think about it, it's so special. You get just like this wonderful, great feeling inside. Now, I could speak to married couples and say, listen, I remember that feeling about 200 years ago in my life. But this is what I want you to understand. You had it at the beginning, didn't you? It's like, yes. I know what that's like. I felt that. I heard some of the most interesting teaching that I think I've ever heard on this subject by a man that's known to many of you right here in Santa Barbara, Dr. Jeffrey Schloss. And according to Dr. Schloss, there's a brain hormone that communicates the feeling of being in love or being infatuated. There's a hormone that causes that feeling. And one of the neurotransmitters is known as phenethylmelanin. I know I'm mispronouncing that, but you could look it up in my notes. When that agent floods our brain, we are falling in love. By the way, that a neurotransmitter is also in fairly high quantities in chocolate.
What?
That chemical gives a feeling of exhilaration
When people say they love chocolate.
and thrill and well-being. And in high amounts, it can lead to a loss of appetite. This is what many people feel when they feel head over their heels in love. This chemical in the brain, it works something like in a cycle, at least in a relationship. At the beginning of the relationship, it spikes up But then after 4 or 5 years, it begins to decline.
Oh.
By the way, according to Dr. Schloss, when you take a look at cultures around the world, there's a noticeable increase in rates of divorce at about 4.5 years of marriage. And biologically
Can we
speaking,
get someone to let
it
Abby in?
correlates
She's
with the
downstairs.
decline of this neurotransmitter in the mind that gives a feeling of thrill and well-being. Now, this leads some scientists to say that we are made for monogamy in the sense that we're to have one partner at a time, but then change partners every 4 or 5 years.
No, thank you.
Well, really, I mean, if you were taking a look from a coldly scientific sense, okay, well, the neurotransmitter goes up and then when it declines, get a new partner and have the spike go up again. You could see where a scientist might say that, but that is taking a look at the data very narrowly. Dr. Schloss says that we know this is not true because in the brain there are also completely different pathways with completely different chemical communicators, and these begin to form at about the 4 or 5 year period in the relationship, and they contribute to different feelings inside the human being. Instead of feelings of thrill, and I'm lovesick, and I can't eat, these are feelings of deep contentment and gratitude. One of the chemicals that mediates these feelings is Oxycontin, which is the same chemical
mispronounced it.
that is, oxytocin,
You
which is
mispronounced it again.
it's
It's
similar to
oxytocin.
Oxycontin, but the same chemical that's related to the bonding of a mother together with her infant. You see, the best research indicates that biologically speaking, relationships have 2 major phases. There's the attraction phase and there's the attachment phase. The attraction phase is very powerful, and it's the kind of condition that makes the maiden say, I am lovesick. And if you've experienced, you know exactly what it's speaking about. But the key to long-term relationships is sticking with it through the attraction phase into the attachment phase. There are some counselors who devote almost their entire practice to trying to help what they call love junkies. People who are addicted to those neurotransmitters that give the thrill, and they're so addicted that they just bounce from relationship to relationship, but they're utterly despairing and empty because they never really come into the fulfillment of the attachment phase in a long-lasting relationship. You could say that we as human beings, God engineered us for the attachment phase. And he intended that the attraction phase be the gateway into it and not something into itself. Now, Dr. Schloss also says is that the good news is that when the relationship moves into the attachment phase, the attraction phase will recycle. And long-term married couples often experience the sense of falling in love all over again several times through their marriage.
Okay. So there is an experience that many people can attest to, and now we have research showing there is actual biology to go along with it. But the important part I want you guys to understand is that you may have seen, or you may yet see, in your high school years especially, friends falling in love and then they act stupid.
Yes.
And that is a chemical process that people go through. Falling in love legitimately makes you a little bit more stupid.
What?
It just does. However, it doesn't last.
By hours.
And so if you make lasting decisions during the stupid phase, eventually you'll wake up from that phase and you may regret the decisions you've made. So this is what the Bible has taught us from the beginning without going into the chemistry of it. It said, do not awaken love until the time is right. So here's the question. We've studied this. We know how the chemicals work. When you start doing romantic things with a person,
Well, there.
just simple things,
Oh.
holding hands, just simple things, hugging each other, just simple things, kissing,
Oh, no, thank you.
No.
I understand that's a little uncomfortable. I apologize for that. But
Mean.
just follow me on this. If romance starts, it increases.
I know.
If it starts, it increases. That's all there is to it. So when you fall in love, if you give yourself even a short leash, but any amount of freedom at all, you're going to want more. That's all there is to it. You're going to want more. So this is the Bible's caution. Once you're married, you don't have any reason to hold back. Does that make sense? Once you're married, you don't have any reason to hold back. You're going to want more. Fine. Have more. Have more romance. Once you're married, like, who cares? You don't have to hold back at all. But if you start romance in the dating phase, you're not going to be happy with a little. You're not going to be happy with just a bit. You're going to want more.
I don't want.
That is baked into our biology. You may want 0 now, but let me tell you, that's because you've never had any. That's as it's intended. It is intended to be a source of nourishment that you have no desire for until you get a taste of it. It's designed that way. If you have had no romance in your life, you will have no desire for romance. And when you get a taste of it,
You want more.
now you want more.
I want more.
So the Bible's saying hold off until it's the right time already, and then you don't have to hold back. That's the idea. So here's the question. How does that fit into dating? How could you find the right person, see if they're the right one, know if you want to marry them
Observe.
without putting romance into the equation,
Observe.
without starting? Because that's sort of the issue. If you set up dating to be practice romance, if you set up dating to be romance light, marriage junior, if that's how you set up your dating relationship, then you're going to start yourself on a little bit of romance. And then you're going to want more and more and more. And if you're not able to get married quick enough, you're going to find yourself in a very painful position where you want more, but you remember thinking you shouldn't have more yet, but you really want more, and you just want the romance to increase. Couple that with the fact that the enzymes and the neurotransmitters are flooding your brain, telling you, it's okay, just stay. And making you more stupid in the process. And it's really difficult. It's really difficult. It is far easier to not start than it is to start and then stay just a little bit into romance. Just a tiny bit into romance. Just a little bit of romance. That's much more difficult. Yeah.
I don't think I can get any more stupid.
I wouldn't risk it then.
Say what you said.
All right, let's go back for a second. You guys gave me the definition of dating.
I am playing.
You guys told me what it was. Now, here's my question. What do you think the odds are? Just a purely mathematical question. What are the odds that your definition of dating precisely matches anyone else's definition of dating?
I'm not good at math.
How many people are there in the world?
185.
Just you and any other person your age. What are the odds your definition and theirs are going to perfectly match? I'll take it a step further. What are the odds your morals, your rules about dating are going to perfectly match the morals and the rules of someone else's idea for dating? Yeah.
33.858.
What?
Percent.
What's your units?
That's not.
Percent? Like 1 in? Like, what are we dealing with here?
That was like 30,000.
He got a big number. He didn't say it right.
No,
35,000.
I said it right.
One of you is missing the decimal point. I don't know who it is.
It was 35,600 something percent.
Oh,
There you go.
that's more than 100%. So that's a sure thing. That's how percent works.
That sounds.
That's how
I'd go with 1 in 35,000. That's close to believable for me. So this is my point. Dating as a concept, because it's not an institution, it's not a system, it's not a religion, there is no guidebook. Ansel, did you take Grace's chair?
I told him to.
Oh, thank you. My apologies.
Why?
Because he was talking with someone, so Hannah made her move. Simple.
Ow.
Don't push. All right, so it's not a system. It's not an institution. There is no guidebook. So my point is this. There are no rules in dating except the ones you guys come up with. And that's a little problematic because that means the one making the rules is the one who's never done it before. That should legitimately scare you. That's like going parachuting for the first time with someone who's going parachuting for the first time.
So myself.
You just strap onto them and jump out of the plane. You know what you're doing? No, you? No, but it's fun, right? Whee!
So flat.
That's a bad idea. When you go out of an airplane for the first time, you don't go alone.
Yeah.
You're tethered to an expert,
I don't want to.
and the expert's in charge of the parachute.
I'm scared of airplanes.
So likewise, if dating is just the rules you make up and the rules they make up, why would that work? Why would that ever turn out well? Likewise, do you guys know any kids your age that are dating?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, now I want to role play for a second. Imagine me as that person.
Ugh.
I know. It's pretty revolting. It's pretty bad. Just imagine. Okay, now I'm going out on this date with this person, right? It's our first date. Does it seem realistic if we sit down on the date, or maybe like on the way to the date, like we're walking to somewhere? I say to them, so what do you think the guidelines for dating should be?
I would leave.
I think that's an issue. If you can't agree on the rules, why would you play the game?
I lost
Because the game is risky. Walk out the room.
No. You don't go play basketball against another team when they disagree on what the rules are. You would never do that. You would never go enter yourself into a chess tournament when the other players all have their own rule sets that you don't get to look at. If you sit down to a game of checkers and there's like 90 versions of the game of checkers, or sit down with a friend who has a deck of cards and there's like over 1,000 games you can play with a deck of cards, and you decide let's play, but you don't ask them which game we're playing, no one wins.
That'd be a fun game though.
In fact, you could say neither of you are even really playing. But that is literally how dating works most of the time right now. Most of the time, someone asks someone out, hey, you want to go on a date with me? And they say yes or no. And no one asks the question, so no one even thinks to answer the question, what do you mean? No one ever says that. And that's wild. Because one of you might be thinking, that means we get to hold hands. One of you might be thinking, we get to go see a movie together. One of you might be thinking, that means we get to kiss. One of you might be thinking, we won't be dating next week. This is a one-time thing. One of you might be thinking, we're going to be dating for the whole school year. One of you might be thinking, this is only my third girlfriend. That's fine, right? At the same time, right?
I don't have girlfriends.
Obviously. But I had to pick one. It's weirder if I say boyfriend, right? Because it's me saying it. Oh, okay, yeah. It's my third significant other at a time. That doesn't sound weird rolling off the tongue at all.
My significant other.
Yeah. Okay.
Author.
So, if these two people going out on a date don't agree on what they're doing, do you think one of them's going to get hurt? No?
Probably. They keep it a secret.
I'm sorry to say, but if I beat you in chess and then you say, after I say checkmate, you're like, haha, I beat you. I'd be like, no, you didn't. If we disagree on the rules,
Say that.
we're driving at different goals, I'm going to feel like I'm doing it the right way. I'm going to feel like I'm doing what I should be doing. And you might completely disagree with me.
Actually, if it's opposite day, that would work. Opposite?
Don't go on a date, especially a first date on an opposite day. That's a terrible idea. That's just the worst.
Opposite day right now. Or you're playing a different
All right, so let's keep going. There is another way. Although the Bible does not mention dating, I would suggest to you that there are biblical principles you can apply to how to find a spouse. And if you do apply them, you will get something radically different than just try dating. There's something radically different out there. And there are many opinions on it, but I want to just give you a taste and we can sort of talk about it. All right, you guys ready? Here we go.
No. What?
You're ready.
Dating is three things. It starts with the physical out here. That's
Did you guys hear him? He said worldly dating.
Oh, world.
Worldly dating.
World is just.
Worldly dating. Did you guys catch that?
Yeah.
Sorry, the cut in was real quick and you guys were talking.
The world.
So, worldly dating. One more time.
Worldly dating is three things. It starts with the physical out here. That's the circle. I saw someone, they're hot, they're pretty, they're whatever. So therefore, we're going to go on a date or blow them up online or eHarmony or whatever it is you use, social media. And then we're going to slide into talking about feelings on our date. But because we already kissed on the first date, and because then we talked about feelings, we've expedited that relationship way beyond ever discussing the core of a person, which is their faith. See, the world goes from physical into feelings and very rarely, if ever, gets to the value system on the inside of a heart. And that's why you're 2 years in, 3 years in, and you're still living off those feelings, which now are gone, by the way, and the physicality's gone, and you never knew who the person was. God's paradigm flips it upside down. He says, you know what you're going to do? You're going to start with the faith. You're going to start with the heart. Lady, listen to me. Ladies, you start with who they are on the inside, and then eventually you talk about the feelings, and you save the physical for the moment you walk down the aisle.
I'm not ready to walk down the aisle.
That's fine. That's fine. It's more about the plan. It's more about the plan in your head. Okay, you guys have any questions or comments on that? I don't want to steal the conversation. If you guys have something to say, I'm not ready to walk down the aisle. It was a perfectly valid comment to make. You guys can make comments like that. I would love to hear them. Anything else? Any other thoughts or questions? Did you guys catch what he was talking about? How there's like there's like layers to a relationship. And there's more and more central to who the person is. More and more central to who the person is on the inside. Who they really are. The most important things. And the worldly concept of dating, the normal concept of dating, is to start on the outside and hope that you get to know them well enough that you can make a determination on whether or not you would want to marry them. So the idea is you start out here and you hope you can make it to the center. The problem is you were never meant to pass through all these other things to get to the center. You were meant to start at the center and build on those things. Because here's the deal. The person you marry, it is not as important that they are beautiful in your eyes on the outside as it is important that they are beautiful in your eyes on the inside. And the reason is this, it's so simple. Add 50 years to that person. Most of us are. You add 50 years to me, I get real ugly. And the hope, the idea is that if Emily chose well in me, the inside of me is going to look even better 50 years down the road than when she met me. That's the hope. That's the dream. That's why I'm chasing after the Lord. That's why I'm trying to grow spiritually day after day. Is so that by the time I have nothing to offer visually, I am just a big white raisin. That's going to be me. Giant white raisin. That on the inside, I am a catch. I am the 80-year-old catch. That's the dream. Giant white raisin on the outside, heart of gold on the inside. But if you start with the looks, what ends up happening is this. You've invested something you can't get back. If you start with the physical, the hand-holding and the kissing and everything that comes with that, you can't get that back. And maybe, and he's right about this, maybe you'll figure out what's on the inside. Maybe. But you might not. You might get so far down that road of the outer shell, the physical, that you're like, we gotta get married. I'm just so crazy about you. We gotta get married. And then you do. You get married, and you never even saw what was in their heart. You never even saw who they really were before the Lord.
It was blood.
Okay, not that heart. The Hebrew concept of the heart. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. That old verse, it became like the Jewish mantra. The heart, mind, soul, and strength. Those are like the four chambers of the heart. But none of those are actual chambers of the heart in reality. They're concepts. It's like the core of who you are in the Hebrew context. Your mind, your heart, your soul, your strength. And interestingly, strength is one of them. It's like force of will. It's like how strong-willed are you? So this is what they mean when they say heart. They don't mean blood-pumping organ.
Why not?
Because that's not what they mean.
No.
They knew a little bit about blood, don't get me wrong. They didn't know how muscles worked exactly. You know, like the most they knew about muscles was how to barbecue them. That was their big chunk of knowledge.
They don't mean this.
Food.
Meat is muscles, that's what meat is.
Oh yeah, not me.
Sorry, that's just how it works. Okay, so, whole thing, inside out, start with the center, then you work out from there. So here's the idea. What would dating look like if the very first thing that the dating relationship started with, the very first thing, like when you cross the bridge from we are friends, like I am friends with all my other friends, to we're looking at marriage, the very first thing to occur is, what do you believe? What is in your heart? What is your faith founded on? What is your belief about the world? What is your belief about God? What is your belief about us as Christians that we're supposed to be doing with our lives? And you just checked all those before you ever gave him a kiss, before you ever said, I want to be your girlfriend, I want to be your boyfriend, before you ever said, let's go on a date. You said, who are you? What's inside you?
America.
What makes your soul tick?
Yeah.
What makes you who you are? What if that was step one? And then this is an even crazier thought. What if you did that just while you were friends?
That'd be crazy.
And there's like, oh my gosh, there's like no romance at all. There's no relationship of dating. There's no relationship of maybe we'll get married someday. It's literally just, we are just friends. And as a friend, I'm a little curious. What makes you tick? What's deep inside of you? What is the core of you? What is it that you believe? What is your faith founded on? And you started with that. And if you got a really good answer, then you'd move on to step two. And if you got a really bad answer, you're like, I'm so glad we're just friends.
I'm so glad we're just friends.
I'm so glad. It's really fun being friends with you. You know, it's actually really easy to just have fun with someone who is not husband or wife material.
Yeah.
It's not hard. Just having fun with someone who you would never dream of marrying. You can totally have fun. Hang out, play games, go places, skate, play basketball, do whatever you want to do. Like, dude, you can have all the fun in the world, and there is no chance they are raising your kids. There is just no chance. No chance. But you can have fun. And you know what? Maybe you'll be in their wedding someday. You'll be like the bridesmaid or the groomsman or whatever. That's fine. You can be friends with that person.
Yeah.
But I would say this. Going out on a date with them to find out all of those things is going to do something. It risks something. It risks you ever getting to be friends with them again. One of the hardest things there is to break up with an ex and then be friends with that person who you were previously romantic with. And just keep on being friends. Hey, pal. Hey, buddy. How's it going? Because in your heart, you're like, hey, pal. Hey, buddy. You messed me up. It's hard. You don't ever feel the same about them ever again. But if you just found out with no real attachment, no real romance, that like, they are not the one, that's fine. Who cares? Be friends. You can be friends with them for decades. No problem. No problem at all. And in fact, you may, as a friend, be able to lead them closer to the Lord. You may be able to encourage them and boost them up and help them draw close to Christ. Sweet. That's awesome. No problems. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
No.
I got a few starter questions down here for you. We already talked about who writes the rules of dating. No, there are no rules. It's a scary Wild West out there.
Yeehaw!
Why does it feel strange, do you think, if I told you you should involve your parents in your dating life? And you should involve your pastors in your dating life. Why does it feel weird? Anyone know? Why is it strange to have like a third party poking in, looking in on your dating life and saying, I'm watching you. I see what you're doing. Why is that weird?
Sounds like a stalker. Yeah.
And rightfully so. Why is that weird? I need you to put your finger on it if you can. What is weird about a parental figure, a grandparent figure, a pastor, watching, keeping track of, looking over your shoulder when you're in the midst of romance? Why is that weird?
It's awkward. We
Because
want
it's
privacy.
your thing.
You want privacy? Why do you want privacy with romance? Why?
Well, I'll just say it was awkward and I wanted privacy.
Because they're probably jealous.
You're not wrong. You're not. That is so wrong. You're not wrong. He said they're jealous. Oh, to be young again. No! That's not why, Danny. Why is it weird, Bella? Why do you want privacy?
I don't really.
Anyone else can answer this too. Why is privacy and romance, why do they go together? Yeah. It's yours. That is correct. Romance was meant for two. That's it. Two humans at least. Two humans. You can involve God. You can totally involve God. But two humans. And romance with more than two humans, there is something wrong with that. There is something wrong with that. So here's the conundrum. The Bible says you're to honor your father and mother. You're to leave big decisions in their hands until you are the adult in the room. And yet, kids want to date.
Is dinner here yet? I don't want to. It should.
Some kids want to date. A lot of kids slightly older than you want to date. So how do we fix this? Do we just say parents butt out? This is my romance, this is my dating life, you're not allowed.
Yes. No. I don't.
How do we fix it?
Don't tell them.
Yes. I think that's a pretty good answer, but
Say don't vape.
don't date.
Don't vape also.
Yeah. Yeah, vaping kills your lungs. Kills your lungs.
That's the point why some people vape though.
What?
That's the point why some people vape though.
Why?
They want to die.
Because they want to die. Yeah, yoo-hoo, mission accomplished, yay. Should we really support that though, still? Like, they want to die so they're vaping? Like, I'm pretty sure we should also not support that.
Kills your lungs.
Eating tobacco, yeah, well, mostly your throat, actually. You can get throat cancer from chewing tobacco, and tongue cancer. Dude, do you know what the treatment for tongue cancer is?
Cut it off.
You don't get to have a tongue anymore. It's not fun times. Not fun times. Yeah, don't look at those. It's gross. Okay.
Hi, my name's
Yeah, the talk box ain't fun either.
smoking for 50 years.
Ugh. Do they show that stuff to you guys at school?
Yeah.
Like the I've been smoking for 50 years videos? So freaky. We had in my youth group, when I was your age in middle school, our youth group had a dentist come in. And the dentist showed us the horror photos of dentistry. Like when you don't brush your teeth, this happens. When you forget to tell someone you have a cavity, this happens. When you don't gargle with mouthwash or clean your tongue in some fashion, this happens. And it was the horror stories of dentistry, and man, that left some scars on my soul. I will never get those moments of my life back. I was frightened.
Don't show that to us, please.
Very scary. I'll see if I can get the Hanishes to send it over to me.
So,
He still practices dentistry, I think, or his son does. It was the Hanishes. They got them in because they went to our church back then. Anyways,
show the video to my little brother.
so guys, it's simple. Romance was meant for two humans, not more. So the Bible says that your parents should be involved, though, and that only works out if your beginning pre-marriage relationship is lacking in romance. If your pre-marriage relationship is lacking in romance, then it's not weird to have your parents involved. If your dating relationship, if you're seeing if you want to marry them, time is lacking in romance, then it's not weird if your pastor's involved. Why do I mention pastors? Well, not everyone has a mom and a dad at home. They just don't. Not everyone has that. So for some of you guys, it would be difficult to know what a man would think, a godly Christian man who cares about you would think about the guy you want to date, because you don't have a dad at home. So maybe you can go grab grandpa. You can introduce grandpa to the guy you want to date. That's awesome. But likewise, thank you, Shane. Likewise, you guys can ask your pastors. No, that's definitely Shane. I don't have an accent. What? Only one of you has raised their hands. I cannot hear them.
Oh, what?
You raised your hand. I don't know what you said.
My bad.
Yeah.
He sounded so righteous when he said, "God bless."
Oh, okay. All right, so
Anyway,
the solution is cut the romance. Just see if that person's right for you and do it under the guidance of your parents. Do it under the guidance of older Christians that you absolutely trust. Because, and this is critical, what happens when you start romance? We discussed it earlier.
I forgot.
Stupid.
Yeah, you get stupid. So if the romance is beginning, you need second opinions.
I raised my hand. He ignored me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. You are the furthest away and in the dark the most.
Stupid.
Yes, big hand raise. Okay, so check with the adults who love you most, who love the Lord, and they have your best interest at heart. Do not trust your emotions and your feelings. They're being driven by chemicals. You wouldn't trust a drunk person to drive a car. You should not trust an infatuated person to drive a relationship. It just should not be so. Yes.
So the reason why you need second opinions is not only because they're stupid at that moment. You need experience because your mom and dad are married. I wonder how they got that relationship.
Yeah.
Otherwise you wouldn't be alive.
This is true. This is true. They got some of the things right, obviously. Yeah. So yeah, you should trust the people who have godly marriages, who love you and love God. You should trust the people who know more than you because they've been down this road. I wouldn't go and ask dating or marriage advice of someone who's had 9 marriages. So I don't want to count experience in that way. Does that make sense? I don't want to count experience by you've done it more. Or, hey, you've been on 50 dates. Tell me how to go dating. That's not the kind of experience I'm looking for. I'm looking for the kind of experience that shows good results. Does that make sense?
What if the person who went on 50 dates was the same person who was over?
Oh, yeah, okay. Sorry, I probably said that wrong. 50 dating partners? Something? I don't know. I said it wrong. Good point. Yes, lots of dates with the same person is probably a good thing. Yeah, good point. Yes, in the back. Thank you for waving.
Okay, this is not a part of the topic. We have worship tonight.
Yes, that's what the texting was. You were part of it, I thought.
Yeah, I was. My mom was a part of it.
Oh, that wasn't you? They share a phone number, so I can never tell if I'm talking to Sonia or Victoria. I just never know. Okay, well, great, cool, yes. Worship tonight, starting in about 20 minutes. So we got to wrap this up. All right, you guys ready? We're getting to the end here. What? You don't know the songs?
No, I got it sent this morning, and I was so busy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll hook you up with the YouTube videos. You can listen to them on loop back there, okay? But yeah, practice is in 20, so you'll get to just practice them. All right. Do you guys know what to do if you like someone?
No. Ignore them.
Ignore them. Okay, let's do it. Let's do a hypothetical. Some number of years have gone by. You have grown and matured, and you are a responsible young adult. You are so ready for marriage. You know how to have a job. You know how to take care of kids. You know how to serve someone selflessly. You know how to do just this whole long list of things you should probably know how to do before you get married. You're totally ready. You've talked to your parents. You've talked to the Christians you trust, and they've said, yes, you are ready. Okay, so there's your hypothetical. This is you in the future. Now, you see someone you like. What do you do?
Nothing.
Run away.
No, we're pretending you're... Shh, raise your hand, don't say it all at once. We're pretending you're mature, so you're not going to run away. Yes.
Summon all your courage and then lose it all in the moment.
That sounds a little too honest. Anyone else?
Do not approach them.
Do not approach. They might bite. Yes.
Get to know them.
Get to know them. Yes. Hopefully, and I say this cautiously, if you're a very mature person, the reason you like them is because you do know them.
Wait, what?
What? Because
That's how it works?
If you're a very mature person,
cute.
the reason you like them is not because she's so cute, although that might be on the list of reasons you like them.
Okay, good.
The reason you like them is because you do know them,
What if she has?
and you have got to know them. If you're mature, part of your feelings will be activated by the who they are and not just the what they are. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's part of maturity. It comes with time.
Ow.
It doesn't mean you'll stop liking people based on their looks. You're still going to see pretty people, gorgeous people, awesome looking people and go, clearly they look amazing. That's still going to be there. But there's an extra thing that gets activated when you see someone's heart that is amazing. If you are a mature person, that awesome heart that you see in them is exciting to you. Yeah.
When's dinner?
It's very soon. Okay. What did you do if you like somebody?
So, if you find yourself admiring a special someone, consider these 3 tips. Tip number 1, discern idea versus reality. Just because they make your heart flutter doesn't mean they're good for you. You may be falling for the idea of them rather than who they actually are. Tip number 2, look for overlapping paths. Ask yourself the hard questions. Where do you want to go in life? And would this person help or hinder you? And tip number 3, grow in love. Be their friend and treat them the way Jesus would want you to, regardless if it ends up in a relationship. Don't live selfishly, but selflessly, and see if you could serve them in love. Love can be messy sometimes, so I'd recommend getting advice from people who've been married a while. In the meantime, we hope this helps, and as you figure out the world of love and romance, never forget, Jesus loves you.
All right. They're just tips. They're not the law. They're not the guidelines you must follow or else. But these are good ideas. And the last one is really important because some of these are harder when you're already starting to tip head over heels and you're falling in love with them and you're getting all the hormones in your head. It's a lot easier to mess these up when you're full of hormones. It's a lot easier to get them right if you're not the person involved. Someone who is a third party, a trusted, God-fearing adult, is going to be a lot better prepared to help you through answering these than you would do on your own. But if you're taking all the advice I've given you up to this point, you are already a mature, God-fearing adult by the time you're following these tips. And that will help. It won't make it easy, but it will help. All right, so last one. Let's go.
What I want us to focus on as we look at Ephesians 5:22 to 32 is just one basic question. What is the mystery and the meaning of marriage that flows from that mystery? So let me read this, and then we'll ask God's help and see if we can answer that question. Wives, be subject to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church.
Can you read this for us?
And is himself its Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit in everything to their own husbands. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. Husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself, for no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church. Because we are members of his body. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. That's a quote from Genesis 2:24. This understanding of marriage as a man leaving mother and father and holding fast, not as a temporary thing, but a lifelong commitment, holding fast, not grasping and then letting go 10 years later, or grasping and letting her drop when things don't go well, and the two becoming one flesh. That is a mystery, and it is great. It is profound. And then he says what he means. I am saying that this understanding of marriage refers to Christ and the church. See, what it means is when Paul says this mystery is profound, I'm saying it refers to Christ and the church. He is saying when Christ came into the world and died for his bride, to bring her to himself and to cleanse her and to make her his people, he didn't then look around. Now, how shall I explain this? Oh, there's marriage. That'll be a good analogy. Let's use marriage. It's just the opposite. Marriage wasn't used to clarify the coming of Jesus. The coming of Jesus in the mind of God was used at the very beginning of creation to give meaning to marriage. That was the meaning of marriage from the very beginning. So here's my summary of what we've seen and the implications for the meaning of marriage. God modeled marriage on the covenant love between Christ and the church at the beginning. It's not the other way around. Second, therefore, marriage has always been a witness or a drama or a parable of the covenant love between Christ and the church. Therefore, the roles of husband and wife derive from the roles God designed for Christ and the church. Therefore, confusing or minimizing these roles obscures the meaning of marriage as a drama of the covenant love between Christ and the church. Therefore, conclusion. Therefore, let every husband seek to love and lead and nourish and protect his wife like Christ does, and let every wife love her husband and honor his Christ-like role, joining hands in Christ-exalting mission as God meant for the church to do. This is the meaning of marriage, rooted in this amazing mystery that flows from the very beginning of the creation of marriage, modeled on the covenant love between Christ and the church.
Are you guys okay?
Have you never heard an old man reading before? What?
I thought he sounded like Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh?
Oh, yeah. It sounded like when
That's something.
Biden mixed together.
Biden and Winnie the Pooh? I don't want to see that concept.
Biden, but like more messed up.
We're just too young for this.
It sounded like Trump.
It didn't sound like Trump. It did not sound.
It did not sound like Trump. You guys are crazy.
Way faster than that.
Yeah, way faster. Oh my gosh. You guys, have you never heard any old people speak besides Trump and Biden? Those are the only two old people. Old people just talk slow, okay? That's just how it is. That's impressive.
My grandma's dead. Logan was older. If she was young, she would want to date Logan. My great grandma. Great grandma.
Oh, that's super weird.
She said
I'm not okay with this.
she was young.
All right.
She would want to date.
So he presented a concept, you guys. I hope you were able to take it in while you were giggling. The idea is really simple, but it's also profound. And it's one that Paul brings to us in Ephesians. The idea is this. God invented marriage. He didn't have to invent marriage. He chose to invent marriage. He could have had people just come up with their own stuff. They could have just invented their own thing, their own ideas, like dating. We invented dating. He didn't invent dating. We did. We made it up just under 100 years ago. Isn't that weird?
100 years ago?
Yeah, there was no dating before that.
You just got married? You're cute.
No. You'd court.
Yeah.
Courting is what we talked about in the middle on the last 2 videos ago. The idea is actually that your parents or your pastor, if you don't have a dad around, that they're involved somehow in the relationship and that romance is left out till the end. That you really are just deciding if that is the person you should marry. You're not practicing romance. You're not practicing all of the things you'll do in marriage once you're married. You're not doing marriage light, marriage junior. You are deciding. You're deciding. And so while you're deciding, you don't need to go on a vacation, just the two of you. While you're deciding, you don't need to go spend the night at each other's houses. Yes.
Also, there's arranged marriages and different.
Oh, yes. Yes. For lots of years and to this day, arranged marriages are happening all over the planet. And they were the norm in some cultures forever. And it was really simple. The idea was you didn't ask for your parents' advice. You asked your parents to figure it out for you.
Ooh.
You didn't say, hey, give me some pointers, or what do you think of them? You said, I leave it to you. You pick my spouse. And they did. They just picked your spouse. Yeah.
I thought it was also usually like, you would want them to have money, so you would try to find a spouse that had money
They were doing good at life.
was able to provide that in the family. Yes.
Yep. Yeah, and some people made a rule of don't even try. And the rule was essentially like, my girl's so awesome and our family's rich, so I don't want anyone marrying in to try and get our money. So you have to be able to pay this much, or you don't even get to attempt to marry my daughter. If you can't pay this amount, you're just off the list. They called it the dowry. And so you'd have to pay this amount, or else you couldn't even begin courting. You just couldn't even do it. And so that meant if you were poor, you didn't even have a shot. And so they kept out all applicants that didn't meet that standard. It was a real quick test for them of they're doing well. They know how to have their job working properly. They know how to make a bunch of money. They're going to be able to take care of my girl once they're married.
My girl.
Okay, so the concept here, though, is that God did invent marriage. And the reason he invented marriage was he put it on this earth as a testimony for all time to point to the relationship between Christ and the church. Christ and the church was something that only happened 2,000 years ago, but marriage has been around since creation. And so it's meant to be a picture that everyone already has in their head. They already get marriage. They understand marriage. And then when he says, now let me show you Christ and the church, they didn't start out together. They didn't start out as one. They didn't start out sharing everything. They didn't start out living life together. But once they join, once they become one, once they become married, and that word has many definitions, but one of them is just that you've bonded two things in a permanent way, they can no longer be separated.
But what about divorce?
I do some woodworking. And in
Hardness of men's heart.
it is. The Bible allows it. God allowed it for the hardness of man's heart. And we can even talk about that a little more if you want to.
Yeah.
But marriage, the word in woodworking is I didn't put it in with a nail. I didn't put these two bits together with like a screw. I didn't put these two bits together with like, a little wooden dowel. I put these two bits of wood together in a way that if you applied enough force to break it, it's not going to break where I joined it. It's not going to break where I put them together. I have put them together so solidly that if you broke that wood, it would split the same way as if it was one piece of wood. And so in woodworking, you can say I used a fastener. That's like a nail, a screw, a bolt, something like that. Or you can say they're married. And when we say that in woodworking, we mean it, because when you go to construct a house today, you got all these 2x4s all over the place, right? And all the 2x4s are like one piece of wood. But then over all the important bits, the doors and the windows, you know what you have over the tops?
They're married.
You actually have laminated wood. It is many pieces of wood put together in laminations so that you cannot take them apart. And they are actually stronger like that than just a solid hunk of wood would be of the same size and shape.
So they're married?
And they're married. Those wood slabs are all sliced up thin and married together permanently. They got a permanent bond. Is it LD?
T.
LDL? I can't think of the last letter in the acronym. Laminated something something. Anyways, you can look it up. But in woodworking, yeah, so you cut the wood just so that their pieces fit together perfectly. You completely coat everything in glue. You slot it all together, and there is no way to take them back apart short of snapping it apart, breaking the wood. And so God says, I allow for divorce because of the hardness of man's heart. But if you look at the circumstances where God allowed divorce, not where the law allowed divorce, but where God allowed divorce, you look at those circumstances, what you'll find is this, that the snapping already occurred, and God was saying, I allow divorce because essentially what I'm saying is, I'm not going to make you put them back together. The reasons he allowed for divorce are things like someone cheats on someone, someone's abusing someone. In the New Testament, he says, one of you's a Christian, one of you's not. And in all these circumstances, what is common is the relationship is already splintering or broken. And so when he says, yeah, you can have a divorce, we're not looking at one piece of wood anymore. We're not looking at a joined object. Now we're looking at two things, fragmented, no longer whole. And he says, yeah, I would allow divorce for that. So what is he saying? You already ripped it apart. You can go your separate ways. Does anyone know the original reason to end a marriage? There was one from the very beginning, part of God's design.
You said
Death.
really?
It is. It's part of the design.
That's what I was going to say.
Part of the design. God never says that, you get married and one of you dies and now you have to stay that way. You're stuck. God doesn't say that. Marriage is until death. It's lifelong, is the positive way to say it. It's lifelong. It should last you your whole life. And then when one of you dies, you may no longer feel the need to get married. You may no longer have those passions. You may no longer be of an age where you think it's important for your life to be married. Maybe you're fine now. I've had an amazing marriage. I've enjoyed that. That time has passed. I'll stay single now. Maybe. But if not, if you actually want to get married again, God has nothing ill to say about you. There is nothing wrong with that. Be my guest. Be his guest, right? Like, he's like, if that's something you want still after your spouse dies, go right ahead. There's nothing wrong with that. Marriage was for life. They died, it's over. You can be married again. That's okay. That doesn't mean you have to, but you can. Interestingly, too, in the New Testament, there's a full, wash your hands, you are cleanness to things like, I'm a Christian, my spouse is not, and they want to divorce me. The Bible essentially says, that's nothing wrong with you. If you find yourself single after you were married because you were following the Lord and they didn't want to, that's not your fault. Don't count yourself as a sinner in that instance. Don't count yourself as someone who's broken God's will. No, you allowed them to go their way. What would be the alternative? Let's think about that for a second. You're a Christian, your spouse is not a Christian, and they decide that they just can't take it anymore being married to an amazing Christian. It's just so hard being married to this awesome Christian, and they decide they want to divorce you. What would be your alternative if you weren't going to let them divorce you? What would that look like?
Divorcing them.
No. You weren't going to let them. You were going to hold down. You would never sign the papers. You would never allow it. What would that turn into?
Cutting off their arms.
Whoa, no, don't go. That's way too dark. No, you would be essentially forced to be unloving to them forever. And I don't think there's any way they would be showing you love in that instance. Forever. That sounds awful. So when Paul gives that ruling from God and he says, hey, if they're not a Christian, they just want to leave you, allow them to go. I think that's a really gracious ruling because it frees you up to follow the Lord and you don't have to fight for something that's not working anyways. Yeah.
What if they are Christian?
What if they are a Christian? This is a whole nother issue.
You don't go that far.
There is some things I already mentioned that will pre-break the relationship. And that's one instance. That's one situation. But there's another situation, and I think that's what you're referring to. So imagine you're married, and something has started to cause some cracking. There's some buckling going on. There's a big stress, and the big stress is really starting to have an effect. What do you do as a Christian? Well, the Bible The Bible has a few things you can do, okay? God has a few things you can do. Well, and I don't want to preach down. Like, I don't want to say, like, I'm so much better. I haven't been married as long as your parents were, okay? So, like, I haven't even hit their benchmark, if that makes sense. The Bible says, A, you should take it as all sin. You should take it to the church. You should take it to a trusted counselor. You should take it to someone who can speak with authority to both of you. To both of you. You should work on it there.
A marriage counselor.
If something seriously breaking has occurred, and sometimes even all the way, because the Bible doesn't say you must get divorced once the break has occurred. That doesn't say that. It says you may. He allows for it. But once there's a break, a full break, one of you cheated on the other, there's been abuse, something like that. One of you falls away from the Lord. Maybe you started out as both Christians and one of you has fallen away. Like, there's some serious ways to break a marriage. So let's say that's occurred. You can put it back together. It's not easy. It's not even always possible that like you could know in advance it's going to be possible. But it is always possible for it to be possible. And the Bible says you should at least try. And how do you try? Well, the Bible says if you're already considering staying apart, you're already considering divorce, what might be necessary is a temporary split. A temporary split where you remove yourself from each other's home. One of you finds a different place to live. And then you work on the marriage the same way you would as if you had slight splitting occurring. You work on the marriage the same way. You go to the counselor, you talk to each other, you repair what's been broken. And by being separate, by being in different homes, it cuts off a lot of the negative stuff that was going on. A lot of the negative stuff that was going on that caused the break in the first place can't happen now. Just on a practical level, it's hard to be screamed at when you're not in the same room. On a practical level, it's hard to be abused when you don't live in their house. On a practical level, it's hard to have a fight when you aren't talking. Right? Like, it's just a practical thing. It's not a cure-all. It's not like your marriage will suddenly be fixed or something. But it just removes practically some of the downsides to a breaking marriage. And then when you go to the counselor, you don't have a week of fights to talk about. Then when you go to the counselor, you don't have a week of, I can't believe they keep on. You have a week of, I kind of miss them. You have a week of, man, I'm so idiot. You have a week of, I've been praying all week, and I really want to work on this. That's not a guarantee, but it opens the door for that. It opens the door for that. But it takes both people. It takes both people wanting it. It takes both people trying. It takes both people doing the work. It is not an easy road, and you really need a good counselor. Not a mediocre, not a half-hearted, not a green newbie counselor. You need like a good counselor. It's tough. So, yeah, divorce exists. It's for the hardness of man's heart. There are circumstances where God flat out allows it, and he says it's okay because the break has already occurred. But God says this, and I want you to hear exactly the wording. I hate divorce. Be really careful you understand. He never said, and he never will say, I hate divorced people. He never said that. He never will. But he said he hates divorce. Why?
It breaks his heart.
It breaks his heart. Those two people getting divorced, they're both his creation. All their kids that they have in their home,
You're late.
those are his creation.
He
loves them.
I was just going to comment on that and say, yeah, it just ruins the family unit too.
Even if they go on to have good marriages down the road, that particular relationship and everything attached to that particular relationship is going to have a hard time healing. If the marriage stays broken, like, how are those things meant to heal? There's not a good system for that. Marriage was meant to be for the rest of your life, so the relationships that flow from it are meant to rely on it.
So it's like a part of you.
Yeah, that's the oneness.
Yeah.
The mystery of the oneness. It's part of you. It's like when you join to Christ. You can't just leave Christ and be the same.
I was told that when they break like that, like pieces of the other boards are attached to the boards.
That's exactly right.
So that's why it's so hard.
That's exactly right. All right, so last things, and then we'll go eat. What does submit to your husband as to the Lord mean, and what does love your wives just as Christ loved the church mean? Anyone got any ideas on this?
I'm really hungry.
Amen to that. All right, we'll skip to the answer then.
Videos.
Here we go. Okay, so this is from 1 Peter. So for the women, in the same way you must accept the authority of your husbands. Then, even if some refuse to obey the good news, your godly lives will speak to them without any words. They will be won over by observing your pure and reverent lives. This is one good reason. It's not the reason. It's not all the reasons. It's one good reason for wives to treat their husbands the way the church treats Christ. And you got to be careful that that only goes as far as it goes, because your husband isn't Christ. Newsflash. Does anyone here have a dad that's like so Christ-like you get confused sometimes? Wait, are you Jesus? I forgot. Like, that doesn't happen. We all know. So yeah, there's a limit here, and the limit is sometimes they're sinners. But then likewise, flip the script, go over to the men's side. In the same way, you husbands must give honor to your wives. Treat them with understanding as you live together. She may be weaker than you are, but she is your equal partner in God's gift of new life. Treat her as you should, so your prayers will not be hindered. So again, one good reason, not the reason, not all the reasons, but one good reason that you're meant to treat your wife this way, guys, is because when you mistreat your wife, what you're doing is you are mistreating the church as Christ would never do. The picture you're living out in your marriage is that the husband is Christ and the wife is the church. So if the husband mistreats his wife, you are now misrepresenting Christ. You are not acting Christ-like, and you are providing a terrible reflection of who Christ is. Did you get that? So then when you go to Christ in prayer, you try and talk to him all buddy-buddy, but you just mistreated your wife. Guess what? He ain't listening the same as he was yesterday. Your prayers are misdirected. You're praying for odd things. So he just warns you, like, you're going to notice your prayers aren't working anymore. You're not feeling the same relief and renewal of spirit when you go to the Lord, because you're going to him with this sin that you've somehow mentally okayed. You're scarred, you're broken, and then you're going to him like everything's fine? So on both sides, there's at least one quick good reason. He also, this is Peter writing this one. Paul brings this up in Ephesians, and the video I found, he chopped off the beginning and he chopped off the end, and I thought that was interesting. So I provided the beginning and the end of the section. He chopped off, and further, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Now, this comes after a whole section about submit to this, submit to that, submit to this, submit to that. Government, boss, all these different authority figures that we as humans need to submit to. And then he says, hey, Christians, submit to other Christians out of reverence for Christ. Like a blanket statement, submission. What does that mean? It means I care about what you need at a greater level. I hold it up higher more than I care about what I need. We're supposed to do that for each other constantly. Submit to one another. And then he says, for wives, here's what it looks like. You just submit to your husband. You hold what he needs up higher than what you need. That is hard. That is hard. And most people say it's unfair. But here's the deal. Not every wife does this. Then move down to the men's section. For husbands, this means love your wives just as Christ loved the church. So women, you were supposed to hold up your husband's needs higher than your own needs. Husbands, you're supposed to love like Christ. Like the way he loves the church. He loved the church by dying for the church. By giving up his whole life for the church. That's even harder. And frankly, most husbands aren't doing this.
That's enough.
So as much as a lot of people don't like the wife's role here listed out by Paul, I don't think the husband should like theirs either if we're judging on the same grounds. We're using the same yardstick. These are both ridiculously hard. But the point is this. When you even get close, when you even just make the attempt, it improves your marriage. Do you get that? Not perfection. You're not all the way there. You're not as Christ, just glowing and floating everywhere. But just making the attempt. Just growing in your daily effort to do this improves your marriage. Yeah. You guys gotta quit raising your hands. It just delays the eating. Get real.
You know what?
All right, guys, here right at the end, check this out. As the scriptures say, a man leaves his father and mother and is joined to his wife, and the two are united into one. This is the great mystery, but it is an illustration of the way Christ and the church are one. So, again, I say, each man must love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. So he says it again, but softer. He lowers the standard down for the husband to almost like the standard he gave the wife. And then he just sort of reiterates in a different language the standard for the wife. This is what marriage is meant to look like. All the particulars are kind of up to you. Where do you want to live? What kind of job? How many kids? Are we going to be missionaries? Are we going to be plumbers? What are we going to do? Like, all the particulars are up to you. They're not mentioned in the Bible. You must have a life that looks like this. It's not there, but this is. It's how you treat each other. That's there. Everything else, take your pick. Run a restaurant. Be a postman. Train dogs. I don't care. He doesn't mind. Whatever you like. Homeschool, public school, private school, whatevs. But this is set. This is how this works. How do husbands treat their wives? How do wives treat their husbands? So, we're going to grab some food. Let's keep talking about this. Line up, ladies first, guys second. Let's pray first. Shh. Shh. Lord, we thank you for this food. We thank you for the chance to talk about dating and marriage. And we ask, Lord, that you would adjust our hearts and you would keep them well protected. Help us, Lord, to always put your will first, your plan first, and to treat you as the ultimate authority. Help us to respect our parents and the other godly people in our lives that have something to say. Help us to understand when they tell us we don't have the best idea. Help us to offer up our love life to you year after year after year. Bless this food to our bodies, Lord. We pray that in your name. Amen. Hello! Sorry to delay you. We have topic nights at 4. I'm trying to get done in time for worship practice, but it's tricky. A pizza? I didn't do the math. How many slices are there? No. How many slices are on the pie? You gotta know. Otherwise, I can't tell you. 10 slices on the pie? Is this 2 or 1? But she's never going to shit. There's nothing even there.
12, 13.
I did nothing, okay?
Take a donut, take a slice.
Wait, we get to take a donut again. Wait, they're gonna take the best donut.
No, I got along for 3 weeks.
I'm so excited.
And I get to see
Pre-summer club.
Were you able to print word sheets?
I'm gonna hit them right now.
Okay.
You have set aside.
Okay.
That's my name. Victoria Vicky ain't my name. Alan also got mad at me for talking about Genji. Thank you, Alan.
Yeah.
It's wrong.
I need the green iPad ASAP.
We were there, Daniel. Wait, are we practicing?
This is practice.
Practice. What?
Willow.
Practice.
It was really good. Willow.
I look good.
I need your higher.
You are? Here's your iPad. I am.
How many copies you want?
I'm the best. I got Daniel's iPad.
2 of each. Sweet.
I'm the nicest. I know. I'm sitting on the green now. I was gonna sit on the green.
This ain't performance, y'all. Please do not sit here. What do you mean?
Cheers.
Perfectly normal.
Because this is really good and organized. Nothing you do is perfectly normal.
That was not perfect.
You guys take summer tests?
No.
So, you can't say never.
Whoa.
Never. What did you do to your foot? What? What did you do to your foot?
This time.
I wore your sweatshirt. I wore because I assumed that you wanted it back. No,
I never said that. I said I would give it to you.
I feel bad. It was a great show.
It was a great show.
This is entertainment right here.
So what did you need to talk to me about? I think it sounds fine.
I don't know why, but I think pizza's good. What? Oh, you should not. That one is sparrow. It's like hands down. My favorite song is Sparrow. I listened to. That's what I thought it. As it is 1,000 before, because it didn't happen.